John Johnson, the grandson of slaves turned the most influential African American. John Harold Johnson was born on January 19, 1918 in Arkansas City, USA, to Gertrude and Leroy Johnson. When John was 6 years old, his father died in a sawmill accident, so he was raised by his mother, who worked as a camp cook. Leroy's death forced John to start working from an early age. According to John in an interview with Jim Hoskins, he said, "I was a working child. I learned how to work before I learned how to play." Despite the hardship, John's mother understood the importance of education, so she insisted that John attended school. John was enrolled in an elementary school meant for black students. John's mother remarried James Williams, who later became a prominent figure in John's life. The elementary school was not only overcrowded and segregated, but only also up to 8th grade. Since there was no public high school for the blacks in the racially segregated Arkansas, when John finished with his 8th grade class, his love for learning made him repeat the 8th grade rather than discontinue his education. In 1933, John traveled with his mother to Chicago to visit the World Trade Fair being held there. Back then, Chicago was considered a mecca for the emigrating blacks, and Gertrude hoped that opportunities in the North were more plentiful than in the South. After the event, John and his mother decided to stay. His stepfather soon joined them in Chicago. More so, Arkansas was in the middle of the Great Depression, so the family saw moving to Chicago as an opportunity to look for a job and for John to continue with his education. While his mother and stepfather looked tirelessly for jobs, John was enrolled to Wendell Phillips High School. As they were not able to get a job, they reluctantly applied for welfare. John moved from Wendell Phillips High School to DuSable High School. In both schools, John studied with middle-class blacks and suffered tons for his country ways and his tattered clothes. John made up his mind to establish himself. He gathered self-improvement books and studied them all night. Soon, his efforts were crowned when he was elected the class president due to his leadership qualities. John also did excellently as the school's newspaper editor and the manager of the class yearbook. John later joined the French Club and became the president of the student council. During that same time, he got a job with the National Youth Administration, a New Deal project. In 1936, John graduated from high school with honors. He was then offered a $200 tuition scholarship to the University of Chicago. He initially thought of giving up on the offer because of not being able to figure out how he would meet other expenses. But soon after the graduation ceremony, John gave a speech that impressed Harry H. Pace, president of Supreme Liberty Life Insurance Company, SSL, so much that Harry offered John a job so that he could use his $200 scholarship offer and continue his study. John therefore began working as a part-time office boy at Supreme Life Insurance Company on 1st September 1936 while continuing his studies at the University of Chicago. John's initial job was to read all the available periodicals, select those articles that might interest Supreme Life's customers, who are mostly of the African American community. Harry would have those articles reviewed and printed at the company's monthly magazine, The Guardian. This job provided John with quite a bit of fun to attend college, so he attended the University of Chicago and Northwestern University. Within 2 years, John had become very close to Harry. He utilized the opportunity to learn more business techniques directly from Harry himself. In 1939, when John was promoted to the post of the editor of The Guardian, he dropped out of university to work full-time at Supreme Liberty, preferring to learn on the job than go to school. Soon, John began to wonder if the African Americans within the community might enjoy an exclusive magazine that catered solely to their needs. He devised an idea to create a publication patterned after Reader's Digest and named it Negro Digest. To raise capital, John approached Chicago's First National Bank for a business loan, but he was told that no financial institution would ever loan money to an African American. He solicited for funds from established African Americans, but they discouraged him to. However, his mother supported him by agreeing to use her furniture as collateral for a loan of $500. Harry also helped him by granting him access to his company's mailing list containing 2,000 policyholders. John wrote to the policyholders requesting for a $2 subscription. He eventually generated $6,000 from Supreme Liberty's policyholders. His wife, Eunice, helped him in mailing chores. participating in editorial and circulation publications. In 1942, John successfully launched his Negro Digest publishing company. His office was a small corner of a law library located within the Supreme Liberties building. He published the first 5,000 copies of his issue in November 1942. He mailed 3,000 copies to his prepaid customers and gave the rest to a well-known distributor. When he was told that African American publications did not sell so well, so newsstand owners would not keep them, he developed a unique sales strategy. John would ask his friends to secretly go around newsstands asking for Negro Digest. The newsstand owners soon began to think there was a demand for it, so they began to keep the publication on their stands. John would eventually give his friend money to buy all the copies of the journal, which he sold back to the newsstand owners. John used the same strategy in other cities, though he used a different strategy in the South, where he sold his journals in cotton fields, parks, and buses. Within 8 months, the circulation of his journal had reached 50,000. John resigned from Supreme Liberty in September 1943. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt's contribution to a popular column, If I Were a Negro, in his journal raised the circulation of the October 1943 issue to about 150,000. That same year, John bought his building. Since news in Negro Digest was published in digest form and most readers want magazines like Life and Look, John launched Ebony. The first issue of Ebony was published in November 1945. The journal was a complete success as the first 25,000 copies were sold out in the first few hours. This triggered John to print another 25,000 copies. Initially, John did not include advertisements in his journals, but depended solely on subscriptions. But in 1946, his journals began to carry adverts not only from Supreme Liberty, but also from Zenith, Ellen Watch, Chesterfield, Quaker Oats, and Armour Foods. In 1949, John renamed his publishing company from Negro Digest Publishing Company to Johnson Publishing Company and moved his headquarters to Calumet. He subsequently launched another magazine named Tan, a true confession type of magazine. In 1973, he launched his line of cosmetics, Fashion Fair Cosmetics. He also bought 3 radio stations, started a book publishing company, and launched a television production company. During the early 1980s, John had become one of the richest businessmen of the land. John died on August 8, 2005 of congestive heart failure at age 87. He was survived by his wife, Eunice, daughter Linda Johnson Rice, and a granddaughter. His only son, John Harold Johnson Jr., died on December 1981 at the age of 25 after battling with a sickle cell-related illness. His wife and daughter continue to retain full control of Johnson Publishing Company as the only 2 shareholders in the company. John Johnson never allowed the troubles he encountered in life and unpleasant situations around him to fashion his life negatively. Instead, he allowed them to fuel his already formidable determination to make something of himself. Thank you very much for watching our videos. We'd like to give you another interesting video for you to enjoy next. But before then, our team will be very happy if you can like this video and share it with your friends on social media. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss other interesting videos like this. Look at your screen now to see 2 other interesting videos we handpicked for you to enjoy next. We love you.